We still can't hear you. Our producers will work on this and see if we can have you join the conversation as we move along. But let me just go back to you, Nelson. And of course, he's saying that if government is not spending, then obviously we're not going to know the true nature of the situation on the ground. Because as it stands now, there's a smoke screen. We seem to be using that to, tout achievements by the finance ministry, when in actual fact, a lot of work needs to be done. And if that work is done, then we will see that our economy is not performing as well as it should be. What do you say to that?
Well, I think I will share a different opinion as to whether the government is not spending. From an analytical point of view and what we can see on the ground, I think government has focused more on their priority projects. If you look at the initial budget, about 30 billion Ghana cedis has been allocated to the big push.
Yes.
And if you go around the country, you could see that there are a lot of road construction going around the country. You could see the road minister, somebody I personally admire so much, the Terminator, who has always been on the road, trying to monitor situations on the road regarding, the big push project.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, and I think I overheard him on a few occasions saying that they don't owe any contractor up to date. And if that is something to go by, then we can confidently conclude that the government is actually spending within the road sector. Then if you look at other priority project sector too, the health sector is one of the challenged sectors in the country as far as financing is concerned. But I think the government is also doing very well within the health sector. And so generally, the just saying that, government is not spending enough, I think we need to look at it on case-by-case basis, sector-by-sector basis, then we can draw that generic conclusion. Mm-hmm. Now, regarding the debt position, as I did indicate, from my viewpoint, even though we don't only use debt to GDP to actually measure the financial health or the debt sustainability of a country, it is one of the major metrics that is used globally. This is because if you have your debt to GDP moving beyond 60%, then you are going to have a problem. I remember in 2022, our debt to GDP was around 71%. And at that time, if you check our external sector, we were not doing very well. And that was the source of our problem. Because number one, we were not mobilizing enough domestic revenue. Number two, our deficit gap was also widening. Number three, our debt position was skyrocketing. And that was the problem that we had. And so if you look at the trend of our debt to GDP from December 2025 to date, you realize that we have been able to maintain it within 40%, below 50%. For instance, in December 2025, our debt to GDP was about 44.7%. Then first quarter 2026, it came down to 42.95%. And currently, we are doing about 45%, which means relatively, we've been able to maintain our debt to GDP ratio below 50%, which is good. Because if your debt to GDP ratio is high, then it also means that you are going to use a lot more of your domestic revenue to finance your interest payment. When you check the 2026 budget, it is interesting to note that about 19% of our total expenditure for this year was destinated towards financing interest payment. And that is about 57.7 billion Ghana cedis. Now, you juxtapose that against our capital expenditure, excluding the priority project, which is about 57.5 billion, which means that we are using more of our domestically generated revenue to pay interest rather than injecting that money into, a project that can generate what we call positive NPVs. And so for me, the debt to GDP ratio argument or debate is key when we want to measure the financial health of our country. Number two, we are also talking about the currency depreciation. In fact, if you look at the trend from 2023 to date, you realize that for 2026, first quarter, the cedi depreciated by some below 10%. But when you go to December 2023, well, so as at the end of June 2026, the cedi depreciated by some 9.5%. When you go to December 2024, the cedi depreciated by 19% against the USD, 17.7 against the GBP, and 13% against the euro. Now, when you go to December 2023, the cedi depreciated by 27.7%, which means that in terms of our currency management, there too, I think the finance minister has also done well in collaboration with the Bank of Ghana, because we had a problem at the end of 2025. If you recall, at the end of 2025, the cedi appreciated well over 40%, and it had an impact on the balance sheet of Bank of Ghana in terms of translation losses. You get it? And so management of your currency is key. If you don't have a debt to GDP ratio that is low, and you are not able to manage your currency very well, once your currency depreciates, it adds on to the external debt in cedi terms.
In terms of how we managed the cedi rate, was it sustainable?
Well, there has always been an argument as to whether the forex intermediation of the Bank of Ghana is sustainable. And I've always been saying that the primary role of the Bank of Ghana is to maintain price stability.
Yes, that's true.
And for Bank of Ghana to maintain price stability and currency stability, there are certain tools that the central bank must deploy. And one of those tools could be the policy rate. In fact, let me also put on record that I am one of the analysts who projected the policy rate to remain at 14% for the second consecutive time.
Interesting.
And so it is important to know that the intermediation of the Bank of Ghana is necessary in order to maintain the stability of the cedi. Now, I think some analysts are also attributing the intermediation of the Bank of Ghana using their reserve position. The intermediation itself is not the reserve that the Bank of Ghana is using, but through the domestic gold purchase program. And so for me, to the extent that we've been able to maintain price stability, to the extent that we've been able to maintain currency stability through the Bank of Ghana's intermediation within the FX market, and that is yielding the necessary result to the benefit of the general population, most especially for businesses, I personally don't see any problem with that. And so the intermediation by the Bank of Ghana is actually necessary in order to meet the demands of the bank. Don't forget that on daily basis, importers, exporters, those who are into international business transactions, they request for FX from the banks. Now, if the banks are not having the FX to meet the demand of the business community, what will happen is that we'll be chasing our cedi, convert them to FX, and then give to those who are into international business transactions. And that will go a long way to weaken our cedi. And so this demand supply issue goes a long way to affect the stability of the cedi. And so Bank of Ghana's intervention or intermediation is actually necessary in order to maintain the stability of the cedi. And don't forget that the depreciation of 6.2%, if we should go more, 10%, 15%, then it means that the external component of our debt will also be increasing. And so the maintenance of the currency stability is key for us to enjoy some relative stability within the FX, and for that matter, the stability of the Ghana cedi.
So in that case, the traders are saying that we're very big on mentioning cedi is relatively stable, dollar rate is low, etc. But they are not feeling it in their pockets. When they're going to buy things, they're still having to pay a lot more, in cedis to buy the product. So as far as they're concerned, yes, the government may have done something to stabilize the cedi, but it's not enough for them.
Okay, so I also take an exception to that because we measure confidence in an economy in 3 categories: business confidence, investor confidence, and consumer confidence. Now, when you look at consumer confidence, one of the key indicators you can use to measure consumer confidence is inflation. Because once you have a low inflation, what it presupposes is that the purchasing power of consumers will increase. And so with the same level of salary, your purchasing power will increase. And so if you've been able to move inflation from 23.8%, okay, the same salary, and now you are at 5.3%, are you telling me consumer confidence will not be enhanced? Number 2, business confidence. Businesses, their main preoccupation has to do with cost of capital. They want to go to the banks, borrow at a very cheap cost to expand their operation. Now, when we are living in a regime of high interest rate, what it means is that credit will not be expanded to, the private sector. But if you look at the data released by Bank of Ghana, the July summary of economic and financial data, total advances to banks actually expanded year on year to about 38%. Now, the fundamental question you ask yourself, what is actually driving this expansion? Is because currently we are enjoying a regime of low lending rates. Lending rates are coming down significantly, which is good for the businesses, but a worrying trend for the bank because obviously their interest income will significantly come down. And so in terms of business confidence, when you liken it to cost of capital, you could draw the conclusion that business confidence has been enhanced. Okay. Then again, investor confidence. Now, investors want to invest in your jurisdiction, your economy, and get their money back. And if you recall, currently, Ghana's economy has been rated B, with a positive outlook. That is a clear signal to the investor community that, hey, look, Ghana, we are not ready to go back to where we were coming from. And if you look at all the payment, the Eurobond payment that was done recently was even paid ahead of schedule. And that inspires some level of investor confidence within Ghana's economy. Not only that, because the payment was done ahead of schedule, what it means is that government is going to save some interest, by that payment in advance. So clearly, the macroeconomic stability that we have achieved now, in my opinion, are directly translating into our daily lives. The only problem is that businessmen and women, especially those who sell in the market, they don't really understand some of these technicalities. And so the woman selling watch at the roadside, when inflation was 23.8%, she was giving us 2 ladders for 5 cedis.
Yeah.
Today, inflation is at 5.3%. She's still giving us 2 ladders for 5 cedis.
And that brings in the conversation, not to cut you, the issue of price control. And I'll bring Honorable in shortly. But again, it's gone down, but yet we're still having to pay the same amount for the same, content or amount of food.
Yes, so that has to do with the behavioral aspect of it. Because when you go to the formal sector of the business activity, generally prices have shot down, especially when you buy bags of rice, you compare the price generally. But the problem has to do with the informal sector. Because the woman in Medina Adenta market will certainly not, factor in this. Meanwhile, that is the reality.
All right. Let me bring back Nana Frimpoma Ahen. She's a private sector specialist. She joins us via Zoom. Good morning, Nana.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, loud and clear. It's good to have you. I hope you're doing well.
I am doing very well. I'm sorry I couldn't join you in the studio today.
It's understandable. Don't worry. We still have you online. But I'm sure you've been monitoring the conversation. For you, where do you posit the issue of, the economy, how it's done? The minority in parliament saying that it's only been sustainable because of some temporary factors. In fact, government is not spending. If they were, then we'll know the true state of the economy. Yet, we have the majority saying that so far, so good. Financially, we're stable as an economy. We can do better, but so far, so good. What do you say?
So I'm going to be the mediator and I'm going to bring in some balance. So I think there are two very competing issues here. The issue that people are talking about now is about how can macro stability transform into people's lives.
Yeah.
And then sort of the economic theory here is really very simple. Long run transformation relates to structural economic changes, right? Ghana's economy is largely 80% informal sector, and largely, like I would say, the remaining is 20%. That creates some challenges for growth policy. Now, the 4 measures that in which you would measure any economy, right? One is the kind of macro stability. The second will be around the productive investment or infrastructure. And the second thing is a wider business environment, cost of capital, cost of power, energy, and cost of logistics. Those are the 3 things. And if those things all work synergistically, you would find the transmission from stability to jobs and income. But that transmission takes time. So I wanted to sort of say that as a first gambit, that those 3 things working together synergistically, there are very few economies that can do this very well to translate to jobs. So there's a kind of long run growth issue here. If I have to ask me my view from a private sector perspective of the current performance on the 3 measures, I think where Ghana was and where Ghana should be, I think I would mark that reasonably good, because I think that in the first run, what you need to do is to secure macro stability. That is the foundation for private investment, private capital, and therefore long-run growth and jobs. And then the woman in the kind of the watcher woman feeling it, that takes time. That's not a 6 months issue. That's not a 1 year issue. Unfortunately, that's a long-run issue. So I think if you were to, I were to just basically summarize it, in the first instance, I would say you need to secure macro stability. On that level, you need to make some hard decisions. And those hard decisions means that you have to rein in spending, and you have to put spending in a very few areas. That will constrain, obviously, as my panelists have said, it will constrain your ability to spend money on capital. But if I take the effect on the macro stability, this year alone, we've seen FDI increase. We've seen new factories come in. For me, that's actually, from a private sector point of view, that's positive. Now, that's not going to happen at scale. It's not going to happen at scale because obviously there needs to be more spent on productive investment. So there's a bit of a balancing act here where you cannot have huge amounts, a huge expansionary policy, which is great because then you get lots of infrastructure and then you get more investment. However, government has to really basically balance that. So from a private sector point of view, I think the strategy is actually right. Now, what I look forward to the budget reading now, going forward is now that we've tightened the macro stability, how do we do structural transformation that then delivers for the woman on the street? That's going to be quite interesting to watch. And one of the things three things I'll be looking for in the budget coming forward is, number one, how do we drive further investment, not just from government, from the private sector scale? So I'm looking for sort of measures around that. I'm looking for measures on energy. How do we bring the cost of energy down? Now, there's some reforms going on ECG and others. How strong will we be on these reforms? How do we turn around the cost of energy? That is a critical component. How do we look at infrastructure and logistics? I'll be looking for measures in the budget around, how do we either public-private partnerships. So government cannot do this alone, given the tight fiscal space, and they still have to have a bit of a fiscal consolidation still, I think. So I'll be looking for measures where there's a private sector government collaboration around issues around infrastructure, the 24-hour economy. So I'll be looking for specific structural policies that will give us kind of like those answers to the watcher woman over the long term. But I do reiterate that I think that in the first instance, you do need to balance the economy. That will come with cost, I agree, but those costs need to be held because the other effect is, the other sort of uncomplimentary effect is that you have a huge expansionary policy, and then you have your CD running array. So I'll be looking for those sort of micro, if you wish, signals around energy reform, around transport policy reform, around the wider investment climate, the customs, how quick government bureaucracy works. Those are the things I'll be looking for signals. Those are the deepening bits of the structural transformation. I think that personally, I would not be looking for a huge expansionary policy. I think we should really guard against that. I think we should have fiscal consolidation, a bit of opening that brings in the private sector a bit more strategically. So that I would say over the last 6 months, I would say a reasonable performance, but still there's a lot to be done on the structural transformation side. Thanks.
Honorable Kodua Foku.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, let me go to Honorable Akunoko. Sorry. The names are confusing me a bit. I'm sorry.
Opposition order want to stop.
No. I was actually coming to you. Which is why I was taking my time in pronouncing so I get it right.
He's willing to add into the praises. Good job so far.
But she brings in an angle that's also very important. How do you respond to that?
Bella, I'm so happy. I mean, the conversations so far has been positive. And that is how it ought to be. Because like I said, it gives confidence to this economy global-wise. But I want to correct some of the things that my colleague said. I mean, yes, he can make a case that government is not spending as compared to the way they were spending. But this government from day one has said that everything we do will be prudently. And the amazing thing that has happened is the commitment authorization. Now, no minister can sit in, whether the Minister of Agriculture or whatever, to just approve contracts. You have to seek commitment authorization from the Minister of Finance. And that has brought discipline across the financial space. So, yes, you might say we are not spending. But how can you say we are not spending when over 30 billion Ghana cedis has been injected? And my brother confirmed it. Bella, when you're putting injection into the roads infrastructure, it's a long way of expanding or upping up the productive sector. Because the Chinese will tell you, if you want a community to develop, if you want to kill poverty, provide roads. And that is why there are bunch stocks of plantain in Seychelles also, which cannot come to Accra because of bad roads. So roads investment is huge. Investment in the energy sector. Do you know the price of power? Price per power is 10 cents a dollar per 1 kilowatt of power. That is so bad. As compared to China, it's about $2. So Bella, investment into roads, it's a way to go. And we must also commend this government. Bella, there has been no extra appropriation from the allocations that was made to this government. We have not. Unlike the previous government where they come to power, there's an appropriation bill, and the next day they come with series of other demands. It has not happened. That shows financial prudence, and that is what it is. So it is not true. And with the revenue mobilization, my brother, the fact shows our revenue target for the first half of this year was 7.8 to GDP. But now we are doing 7.7. Very much well. So you cannot say that revenue has been a problem. And I believe that in this, the mid-year budget review, the finance minister will bring ways to ensure that we up our revenue mobilization. And Bella, let me make this revelation that when you go to the port, we're doing amazing work there. Bella, you go to the port, it would fascinate you to understand that when it comes to alcohol import, for example, Bella, the alcohol import coming in is worth 5 billion Ghana cedis. But do you know how much we're doing? We're just doing about 1 million of that. And because of the structures that have been put in at the ports, Bella, the deficiencies, the evasions are being limited. So there are a lot of ways. And I believe that in this mid-year budget review, the Minister of Finance will find ways to ensure that there are complements to our digital framework to ensure that every penny that they spend, we accrue some form of revenue. And that is why I always say that best practice shows that now you go to the UK, you go to China, you barely see cash. So basically, there are innovations which are coming in to ensure that we up our revenue. I mean, so basically, yes.
Just because you're talking about revenue, and I'll just go back to the budget that was read in November. Of course, looking at revenue measures, the minister had indicated that there were going to be some tax reforms, VAT reforms, etc., to ensure that we're able to also up our revenues enough. And we're going to focus on domestic resource mobilization. How has that gone in terms of how much we've been able to raise so far with the reforms that have been done?
No, Bella, we must acknowledge that when it comes to revenues and taxes, it's a problem. As has been acknowledged that 80% of our economic sector is informal. It's a problem when a POP a person from Togo comes to Ghana, work on your house, you pay so much money, as much as 120,000 Ghana cedis, and nothing goes to the state. So basically, it's quite problematic. But I'm telling you that there are some success stories, i.e. what is happening at the ports, which is a good thing. Bella, this is what has always been on my mind. The average Ghanaian wants to see jobs being created. And this is something I've always had in mind. Bella, I've always maintained that as a parliament, as a people, we have to at least alter the discussions a bit. How do we create jobs? Bella, the Commander Sugar Factory, which is now a problem. I mean, you can go in with whatever facility you want. But I always say that it is about time as politicians we have to be innovative, just as Sami Jefi has done. Bella, this is something I always put across. Sit the churches down. Because in the churches, Bella, this is something I have in mind. In the churches, there's discipline. In the churches, there's a reputation. I don't think that if today the government should say that they are giving a church, the Commander Sugar Factory, to the Church of Pentecost or the Methodist Church with whatever facility that should go to them, there will be problems. Because straight away there's market. Straight away there's market. I believe that it would be problematic, my brother. Job creation must not be left to the government only. It must be extended. And that is why I believe the church, the churches must be brought in board to understand that, hey, you know what? Try to create jobs for your people. Bella, this is the challenge I'm saying. You know, you can construct a road, give it to an NDC person, a politician, and it will be difficult for you to mop up revenues. So basically, I have said that for us to solve job creation, we must be innovative. But I believe that so far we've done well. And I mean, in this part, I thought my brother was just going to commend us for us not to drag this discussion much, to say that ATO has done well so far because all the economic indicators, micro indicators, showcases it's evidence that so far it's been good. But what needs to be done is that going forward, we need to be prudent and ensure that it's sustained. Bella, have no fears. So far, it's been good, and it indicates that the future is bright. We can never derail, especially when it comes to spending. Nobody can just get up and be spending anyhow. It will not happen under the watch of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and Ato Forson, the finance minister. We must commend BOG too. Fantastic, they're doing well. So that is what it is. The government is spending, but strategically, investment in agriculture is a good thing. Feed Ghana and others, support is being rolled there. Agro-processing. How do you process? How do you ensure that the farmer, after he stores, after farming so much with the harvest, doesn't go to waste? And those are initiatives that are being taken. So we must commend the government that so far has been good, and that we must ensure that going forward, we stay same. There's
a reason why I was asking about the tax collection. And again, I'm going back to it because, the minister did indicate that in introducing some of these measures, we're going to ensure that we'll beef up the revenue that we make from even taxes alone. So I'll just read a part where it says that, we are also deploying electronic and digital solutions to improve VAT administration. Sure. And that way we'll bring in more of the informal sector, which is about 80% of, the economy. So the introduction of digital solutions of tax collecting systems, which will allow for the monitoring and collection of VAT on cross-border transactions, introduction and operationalization of fiscal electronic devices to enhance compliance and facilitate the monitoring of taxable transactions, and the introduction of VAT reward scheme designed to encourage the public to assist with policing VAT revenue. Now, I'm asking this because I want to get a better understanding of how well we've done in introducing these measures to ensure that we also bring in the informal sector and make some more money from that side as well.
Yeah, Bella, like I said, we have a huge problem at hand when it comes to revenue mobilization. And when I come on TV sets like this, I always try to be innovative in adding to what we've done. In other countries, you can confirm it. Motivations are even given to people who report tax evasions. It's true. Report it. Like we say, the POP guys comes, works on my house, I'm paying him $120. But when there's an official receipt to that, there's a kickback for you, something comes to you. I must say that, yes, the government has tried with supporting GRA. I believe there's been some investment in GRA and others to ensure that, yes, we up our VAT system. And enforcement also. Because, my brother, you be in the market, two markets can be on the same line. You go to one place, they don't charge VAT in order to ensure that their goods are cheaper. So tax enforcement too is a problem that we should be looking at. But basically, I think that leakages, reduction of VAT leakages and others, which is being done with the aid of electronic gadgets, is a way to go. But I must admit that there's still more to be done. And that is why on such platforms, we must be innovative to bring aboard ideas that we can be done to ensure that revenue mobilization is upped. It's enhanced. Because if we gain as a country, it will reflect in whatever investment the government is doing, as against borrowing, which brings inflation and others. Yeah. So that's what I can say.
All right, let me bring you in to respond to that.
Yeah, thank you, Bella. So, my colleagues have, put across a number of issues. The first one I want to address to is the spending, because I said the government is not spending, and is on that basis trying to portray as if our primary balance is doing well. But that is not the case. It's just because we are not spending. We are not spending because our revenue is off target, and that is a fact. We're off target by about 4.7%. I want to be factual in whatever that we put out there to the public. Okay, we are off target, we are not spending. If you are off target with your revenue and you are not spending, of course, you might look on paper to be doing well in terms of primary balance. But in reality, it's because you are not spending. And I gave some figures. Q1, we targeted 78.8 billion cedis. As of now, end of Q1, we spent only 62.1 billion cedis. Off target by 21%. I want to give facts, not, any, propaganda. Is facts. Capital expenditure, we are off target by 41.9%. This is fact. Okay. Foreign finance projects, we budgeted for 5.3 billion. We spent only 0.6 billion. 0.6 billion.
What was the reason for that low expenditure?
The minister should tell us today, because there must be a reason why you put certain expenditure targets in the budget. If you put them in and you will not release funds, then what is the point? That's the issue. So you put the figures there, you read the budget nicely, I'm allocating X amount to this ministry, this agency. At the end of the day, you will not release the funds. Then what's the point in allocating those funds? It's just on paper. Okay, so I want to clarify that is a fact that I've put across. Revenue target mix, that is a fact. All the strategies, we don't know where they are to meet revenue target.
Well, he says, of course, that their government is being prudent in their spending, which is why you're seeing them not go overboard.
No, Bella, I get that. But what I'm saying is there must be a reason why you put certain targets in the budget. If you want to be prudent, yes, then don't put certain figures in the budget.
Yeah.
You are telling us at the end of the day, I'll spend 6 billion on foreign finance projects. 6 billion. You spend 0.6 billion. 0.6 billion. Why? Then why did you put 6 billion if you're going to spend 0.6 billion? My brother Kujo talked about debt to GDP. He was countering on, rebutting on what I put across. That, debt to GDP is really the way to go. I said it should be about debt sustainability. If debt to GDP, the figure that we are seeing now, being low was the answer, then Bella, I'll ask you, then really, why is the government crowding the treasury bill market so much? Why is it crowding out the private sector? Why is it borrowing so much? If the solution was debt to GDP, it is low, so it means we are debt sustainable. Okay, if we are debt sustainable, then we shouldn't be fighting so hard to borrow from the treasury bill market. We shouldn't be fighting so hard. Just a couple of days ago, coming to Parliament to seek approval to borrow over $900 million. It tells you the strain is there, and we shouldn't be, patting ourselves in the back because debt to GDP has gone down. I gave a basis that just by virtue of the CD strengthening, that ratio would improve. And Kujo again indicated that the moment you exceed some 60% debt to GDP, then you are in a danger zone. I wonder where that is coming from. You see, when we are talking to the public, we need to be careful. Some 60% danger point, and then no, there's no real, I don't know where that research has come from anyway. You can research anywhere that there is a 60% debt to GDP, and the moment you exceed, then you are in a danger zone. No. It's about your revenue, how much you are getting, and how much you are paying out. That is why I said debt sustainability analysis. That is the way to go. Anywhere in the world, that is the way to go. So I wanted to clarify that. Now back to some of the metrics that have been touted. Let's look at the CD. Like I said, this year the CD has started giving way, and it looks like that is the reality. Okay, all that we have been seeing in terms of these macroeconomic indicators have been nothing but interventions. Okay, interventions. Like I said, central bank going out there with really tight monetary policy, which is hitting industry. That is why you are seeing GDP growing at 6.4%, but youth unemployment is at 34.4%. You are growing the economy, yes, but youth unemployment is at 34.4%. That should sound the alarm that the growth or the macro indicators that we are seeing, we need to unpack them. We need to really understand what is behind them. If gold is boosting your GDP, you ask, it's okay. It is, one of the income earners for this country. But should we be touting it so much? Because what do we do really to boost gold's income to this country? The price is determined internationally. We don't have an input, and so on and so forth. If tomorrow the price of gold should go down, we will be hit. So why should we tout ourselves in that? Are we boosting local productivity? We should ask ourselves, are we boosting local productivity? I don't think so. There's no evidence to that. Are we diversifying exports. I don't think we could have an answer to that, a positive answer to that. So if you are not diversifying export and boosting export, if you are not, boosting local productivity, then honestly, if the cedi is appreciating, we should ask ourselves how, and we know why. Because the central bank has been dumping the dollars into the market, and this is an interventionary approach, which is not sustainable. The cost is just too much. That is why when I started, I said, yes, we've seen some macroeconomic indicators trending positively, but at what cost? Are they sustainable? And what have been their impact on our livelihoods? Okay, so cedi, yes, appreciating, but based on interventions. The same way with inflation. You ask yourself, inflation has been coming down this year, giving way. Same intervention, because we are not spending because of tight monetary policy approach and order. So you look at all these macroeconomic indicators, and you cannot put your finger on something that has been structurally done to warrant these. And again, my brother Kujo talked about rating agencies and what they have rated the country and all that. I tell you, macroeconomic indicators, they are largely lagged indicators. Okay, it's not plug and play that today GDP growth just turn on and then it's growing. No, a lot of things might have been done before you have, whatever that you be seeing. They are lagged indicators. So whatever applause that we trying to have, I tell you, we have to consider things that were done prior. For instance, the debt to GDP. Who restructured our debt? Who got all the haircuts that we had? All these were done prior. Okay, that's why I'm saying they are lagged indicators, and we have to give credit where it is due.
I don't know how, the people who may have lost their investments at that point will feel about, when you bring up the issue of who restructured our debts. Because, again, we all saw what happened. We saw, the older citizens mass up, demanding that their savings or their investments are given to them the way they expect. And so the domestic debt restructuring did not exactly go as Ghanaians would have wanted.
I don't think we want to spend the rest of the morning talking about DDP. But my point was that, you see, if you are going to tout yourself with having brought down debt to GDP ratio and all that, what I'm saying is then you have to give credit to those that negotiated all these arrangements for us to restructure, for us to have haircuts, for this to come down.
At the cost of the Ghanaian?
That what I'm saying is that is a different structure. That is a different discussion. That brought the stability that we have in the financial services sector. I know how the financial services, and Ghanaians know, I don't want to bring, all these emotions in and all that, but I know the financial service. I used to be a managing director for a national bank, so I know, how things were and how things became after that program was done. Okay, so I don't want to bring emotions. I want to just talk about facts.
Well, it's not emotion, but because you're also saying that then credit should be given where credit is due, which is why I'm saying for the Ghanaian who is watching now, who may have also lost a part of their investments due to the domestic debt restructure, I don't know if they are going to agree with you if you say that credit should be given to the previous government for negotiating a deal that benefited the country. Did it really?
What I'm saying is we are talking about macroeconomic indicators now, and the point I was emphasizing on is about debt to GDP, and the government is touting itself as having brought the debt to GDP really down. And I'm saying we should give credit to where, it's due, because there were negotiations that had been done prior to restructure these debts, change their tenors, and so on and so forth. We had significant shaving of our debt. That is what brought us to where we are, okay? The issue about DDP and all that is a separate discussion. And I'm saying it's really strengthened the financial services sector that we have now Now you can go to, all these financial institutions, knowing that your check will clear, knowing that if you had a deposit, you can really, take it out and so on and so forth. But I don't want to focus so much on that. What I'm trying to say is that all these macroeconomic indicators that we are touting ourselves with, really there has been cost to them. Really, if you look at them, would you say that they are sustainable? Okay, would you say that they are sustainable? And really in the livelihoods of Ghanaians, what have been the impact? And I gave you an example. If really the economy is growing at the rate that we have seen, 6.4, and if it was really structurally driven, such a way that the productive sectors are taking part, then we shouldn't be having youth unemployment at 34.4%.
Youth unemployment?
Yes, at 34.4%. We shouldn't be having that. And I'm saying that if your growth is driven by this precious mineral, gold, yes, that is okay. It's one of the, the commodities that give us, our revenue, which is good. But we should be careful not to over-rely on that. We should grow the economy structurally, such a way that the productive sectors will take over. And I did say that if indeed we are saying that we are sustainable now in terms of, debt to GDP and all that, then why are we crowding out the private sector? Now the private sector is being crowded out because the government is at the T-bill market every week, borrowing so much. So if debt to GDP was the answer, then why are we, crowding out the private sector? Okay. That is my point. So all these macroeconomic indicators, yes, granted, they look good, but underneath them, there are issues. And that is what I want to put across.
Okay.
There are a number of them I can, educate the public.
Yes, we'll come to them as we move along. Of course,
yeah.
I want them to also get the chance to respond. But just quickly, let me also introduce Dr. Eric Boakye-Yadom. He's a senior fellow at Africa Policy Lens, and he's also joined us via Zoom. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ella, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. This morning, just briefly as well, what is your verdict of the economy that's been run by the NDC government so far, and what are you expecting the finance minister to touch on when he addresses Parliament later today?
Yeah, so I think your panelists in the studio have already set the tone. And I think on the face of the numbers, there are some pluses and minuses. And I think generally the numbers are looking good. And I think that there are a few issues we may want to point out, and probably the minister may want to consider it in this morning's or today's budget reading. For example, you could see that the debt to GDP issue that I think my colleagues there are discussing. Mm-hmm. One critical thing we have to be mindful is when you read the budget, the minister mentioned that they have allocated around 200 million Ghana cedis for the rebasing of the GDP.
Yeah.
What it means is that automatically how GDP is computed will go up by that proportion. So any item you calculate in respect to a denominator or a base that is enlarged will naturally fall. So if we see our debt to GDP falling, it is also as a result of the rebasing, and which is admitted in the budget. On the nominal phase of the figures, you can see that debt has naturally gone up. In the first quarter of this year, debt rose to about 33 billion Ghana cedis. And by May, it is the debt addition that have been added is about 43 or close to 44 billion Ghana cedis. So naturally, our debt has gone up. But the reason why the ratio is falling can also be attributed to, number one, some expansion in the economy, and also what do you call it, the rebasing. But then the threshold as in a debt to GDP above 60% and below 60% is generally as we have the ECOWAS monetary targets or ECOWAS economic target that have been set. So when your debt to GDP is above, it is assumed generally that you are doing well, and if it is below, it is assumed. Sorry, if it is below, you are doing well, and if it is above, you are getting into threshold that are also raising concern. So the two arguments can be correct depending on where you are looking at it. And also the fact that you have to look at the revenue you are generating in terms of your ability to pay your interest rate. So you may be a debt to GDP ratio of around 60% or more, but if you're able to generate enough revenue to pay the interest, that also can also be assumed as sustainable. So the numbers, it depends on the angle that you are coming from and the argument that you are making. Okay. But we need to also be mindful that the government really needs money. Government needs money to finance important projects. And one of the avenues that government targets, we know, is our oil. Surprisingly, the budget assumed an exchange rate of 13.8. You know, when macroeconomic targets are stated in the budget, one of the things that is not stated is the exchange rate. No, so usually you wouldn't find government saying that, oh, this is the targeted exchange rate. But if you look beneath the figures, you will see that government actually assumed an exchange rate of about 13.8 Ghana cedis. Look at the revenue, oil revenue stated in dollars, and look at when you look at table 15 and 16 in the budget, and go and check the corresponding appendices in the budget, in the composite budget, you will see that the revenue target stated in the budget in dollar terms was about the expected revenue was around $985.5 million. This CD equivalent is 13,599 billion. If we look at the benchmark revenue, which is $795.2 million, with equivalent CDs of 10.9 billion, and the transfer to GNP is 190. If we compute each of them one by one, it gives you an implicit exchange rate of 13.8. And the question is, if the government intends, or in the mind of the government, exchange rate should be or will be 13.8, why would we say that we are stable? The exchange rate is, we have achieved stability, you know? Or is it also a way of trying to inflate revenue? Then we are going to have challenges. If we have used 13.8 as we expected revenue, and currently we are doing exchange rate is around 11, you know, what it means is that you have overly estimated your revenue, which will affect the government funds for important projects. So it is something that I think it needs to be checked or corrected. I think the assumption is too ambitious, and it will make the government to possibly overspend. And another thing I want to touch on,
just briefly on that, so I can move on as well. Okay.
Another thing I want to touch on is also the expected inflation, which has gradually started inching up. You know, for the 3 consecutive months, it has started moving upwards. We are within the single-digit target, but we should also be mindful that when it continues like that, it increases generally the cost of living that the average Ghanaian is already dealing with.
All right. Well, let me come back to Nelson, because you also wanted to touch on something that Honorable had mentioned.
Well, I think for the benefit of those who are watching us, we need to clarify something. That I made mention of the fact that when we are doing a debt sustainability analysis, the main objective is to determine your debt vulnerability. Whether you are at risk of a higher debt, you are at risk of a medium debt, or you are at risk of a much lower debt. Mm-hmm. And for you to do this debt vulnerability analysis, the IMF together with the World Bank jointly, give out certain metrics. I think the metrics, there are about 6. The first one is export to debt service. The second one is your debt to revenue. The third one is the rate of accumulation. The next one is the debt to GDP, the ones that I always say the politicians like. And the last one is the primary balance. So these are the key, metrics that we use in determining, the debt sustainability of a country. And I mentioned that the debt to GDP ratio alone is not the measure, because all these metrics must be taken into consideration. So the argument shouldn't be around only debt to GDP. Yeah. Because I made mention of the fact that when we check the rate of accumulation, the rate of accumulation is about 12%, which means that the cumulative effect from December 2025 till date is about 12%, the net effect. So that is also a key metric. Now, just like you as an individual, when you go to any banks, they will ask you for certain documents. They will even want to know your DSR, that is your debt service ratio. If your debt service ratio is based on that they'll give you credit. Yeah. Again, businesses, they also look at 2 metrics. The first one is gearing, and the second one is your interest cover. The interest cover is just like your revenue to your debt service. So clearly, these are the metrics that we use in analyzing the debt position of a country. Now, just as Dr. Boakye Yadom confirmed, IMF doesn't have a straightforward percentage for all countries, because if China's debt to GDP ratio is 90%, but their economy is export-oriented, then it means they are good to go. But if our economy is not export-oriented, but our debt to GDP ratio is more than 60%, then there is a problem, there. And so the 60% is just, I think, just as the doctor confirmed, developed by, the ECOWAS, in order to monitor the performance in terms of debt accumulation of countries. Then again, he made mention of the fact that government has been, registering under subscription in their weekly auction. Now, I am an investment banker. That is the industry I play. The fact that government registered under subscription or over subscription doesn't cast a slur on the confidence of investors within the domestic capital market. Now, when, now we are in a regime of low interest rate. Treasury bill 91 days about around 5%. Yeah. What it means is that if I am an investor and Ghana Stock Exchange is doing better than the fixed income market, I'll rather channel my funds to the Ghana Stock Exchange, because the composite index is doing very well. The financial stock index is also doing very well. And so that is not a measure to say, government is sort of losing confidence within the fixed income market. Then again, the intervention and the intermediation of Bank of Ghana, these are 2 different terms. They don't mean the same thing. Okay, intervention and intermediation are 2 different concepts. Now, every month, as I did indicate earlier, businesses solicit for these dollars from the banks. But if you don't have the dollars in the system, your CD will depreciate. And we all know the repercussions when your CD goes down because of, again, your debt position and your debt to GDP position. And so Bank of Ghana has to, intermittently, cautiously and moderately intervene within the market in order to meet the demands of those people who are into international business transactions. Don't forget that if we don't have the dollars, businesses cannot honor their obligation with their partners outside. Everything that we produce in this country is not enough to sustain, and we certainly have to import into the country. And that is why we need the forex intervention by the Bank of Ghana to actually meet the demand of those who need the money to import the goods into the market. And so generally, you realize that the monetary sector, relatively stable, the fiscal sector, most especially debt operation below 50%, highly commendable. And I think we need to give credit to the finance minister and the governor of Bank of Ghana for at least sustaining the gains that we have made till this time. And the expectation is that the primary macro indicators will continue to remain stable even as we inch to the end of the year. July has ended, and so we have just 5 months more to go. Yeah. If we are able to sustain this, then it goes a long way to give what we call policy credibility to government policies and even the credibility of the policy makers themselves.
I see. All right. Well, we're also streaming live on Facebook, and I'll just alert our technical team and the digital team to also just monitor some of the comments that are coming in. A few people are complaining because it looks like a group of people have besieged our page and they're posting something completely different from what we're discussing. So, digital team, please handle it for us. But of course, I mean, we have a few of you who are watching as well. Keep your comments coming in. I've been monitoring a number of them, and I hope that as we move along, we'll be able to get into that conversation. But most of these people are also talking about jobs. And for them, that's one of the major focuses when it comes to the budget. So we're going to come to the issue of, the 24-hour economy and how that has impacted job creation in the country. Because yesterday, when Honorable Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah was also speaking on the budget and what has been done so far and what they expect moving forward, he touched on the issue of job creation. And for him, that 160,000 jobs that's supposed to have been created from the 24-hour economy so far, as far as he's concerned, those are audio jobs and they don't really exist on the ground, because he says that MOUs have been signed for those jobs to be created, but job creation goes beyond just MOUs. Honorable, how do you respond to this? And if you can give us a breakdown of the 24-hour economy, has it started fully or are we implementing it in bits? And what has it been able to achieve so far?
Bella, thank you very much once again. Let me correct some distortions by my colleague, the minority deputy ranking. He keeps querying us to the cost of the stability of the FX. And I'm surprised that upon our visit to Gold Board and the magic that Gold Board is doing, he's still doubtful. At a point in time, we always have to go for choose hope over doubt, because it helps in building a country. And I think he slipped by going into the DDEP program. And it's a good question you asked him. If the many people that have died out there, people with their funds locked up, savings, life-yielding savings locked up, that they cannot get access to, would they be happy with this comment? And he backed away because he knew he was slipping into a no-go area. And I'm glad he corrected that. Bella, it is also worth noting that it is good to take note that this economy is gradually transforming. And I say that with figures, Gold Board alone has yielded $10 billion from a low-hanging fruit, an innovation that it never caught our attention. And you look at the number of golds that was small golds, and because of the good governance, innovative happenings and innovations, ideas from Sami Jemfi and the rest, and we must celebrate that. And when it comes to diversification, Bella, it's happening everywhere. The Feed Ghana program that the government is rolling out, we're talking about agro-processing industries to help the local farmers to ensure that their product doesn't go to waste. That's commendable. So basically, we are not stuck only on exporting raw materials. There is value addition being indicated. I can confirm that Ghana Magnesium Company is even looking at building a refinery. And these are positive impacts that reflect in the economic situation that we find ourselves in. Okay. And unemployment rate, as we speak now, he mentioned, I don't know the figure he mentioned, but it's 13%. As against 13.6 in 2024.
It's youth unemployment.
Youth unemployment. Oh, so now you are differentiating youth unemployment.
No, he was specific, because I remember I asked him.
Oh, okay.
I asked him again, yes.
Yeah.
I like him how he picks and chooses. But let the people out there understand that unemployment rate, as we speak today, is 13%. And in 2024, it was 13.6. So there's been improvement. As everybody is acknowledging that, yes, we started in a very bad situation. But for now, the stability with the microeconomics and things are going well. Bella, you asked the question, which is the 24-hour economy. And that is another innovative way. Bella, it is instructive to put out there that the 24-hour economy, when we came to power, we saw that it had to be well structured. Because, Bella, as we speak now, there is a deficit of $2 billion annually when it comes to food importation. Because there has to be a demand for it. And I don't know if you've heard, but the 24-hour economy has modernized, advanced in a way, and now it's titled as the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development program. Bella, we are targeting the exports, what we produce, agro-industry. And I'm fascinated. And even in Parliament, people sometimes ask, when is it coming? When is the shift coming? Yeah. Bella, in our campaigning, we didn't say it was going to happen in 3 months, 4 months, or 6 months. We said we're going to deliver it. And we've seen that we have to put structures in place to ensure that it survives.
At what point did you realize you needed to put structures in place?
No,
and
Bella,
did you come back to explain to the many Ghanaians who had voted, hoping that, you know, this 24-hour economy will start as soon as possible, and we'll see how that also creates more jobs and also impacts our economy?
From precedent. Bella, we know that there has been some wonderful initiatives. I always say that the free SS policy was a good one, but it was rushed. So in order to ensure that it's sustainable, and that is what it is, like I said, there are some low-hanging fruits that we need to bet on. And Bella, so, like I said, did I answer your question?
Well, yes, I'm still not getting the answer the way you have said that. Yes, you've realized it's a more complicated,
complicated
project, and so you are now restructuring.
Very much so.
How soon should we expect
There's
that
a lot
this goes, full throttle?
Bella,
because we've been told that there are some 160,000 jobs that have been announced so far with regards to the 24-hour economy, and that's what I was asking. That Honorable Kojo Oppong-Kuma says those jobs don't exist on the ground. Can you rebut this and explain to us exactly how these jobs have translated into bettering the lives of the people, if really it has started?
So, Bella, like I said, we've come to realize that in order to ensure sustainability, because this government through structures is creating a platform where private individuals can invest. And in order to ensure that this investment comes in, there has to be that rigid framework for them to understand that whatever investment is made will not be centered on one government or maybe a 2-year term or a 3-year term. It has to be grounded. And Bella, we're looking at logistics. I always say that the cost of logistics of doing business in Ghana, it's so high. How do you survive? And that is why even linking the southern side to the northern side through the use of the lake, the water lake, it's innovative. So structures are being put in place. The cost of power, I always maintain that for a business, why do people migrate from the US? Why do industries migrate from the US to China? Because cost of power is so cheap. It's the cheapest in the world. We're talking about 2 cents per kilowatt hour. And that is what it is. So Bella, the 24-hour market realized that structures need to put in place, because we're not only targeting fixing the debt, the balance, trade-off balance in the system, we're looking at also catching the export market. So these are some of the things that is being done. Bella.
Okay. Are you moving off the 24-hour or?
No,
okay.
I thought you said I should mention it.
Yes, that's what I want.
Some of the areas that we are targeting is manufacturing, agro-processing, logistics and service, and also bringing down the high cost of power supply. So, like I said, it cannot be, because for you to even recruit about 10,000 police officers, 20,000 police officers, there has to be a role for them to play. Bella, you get it? So there has to be a role for them to play. We know that for companies to be able to work throughout, they will need security services. But like I said, if you don't create a platform for private individuals to invest, because job creation, like I said, cannot be a government-centered priority or a government-centered initiative. It must be supported by everybody, the churches, the private individual, and everybody. So basically, there are structures being put in place. Bella,
so it hasn't started?
No, we've even passed the bill. Do you know that we even passed the bill on it? Did it come to you?
So it hasn't started?
It hasn't started.
It hasn't.
Measures are being put in place because of the high investment that we expect the private individual to bring into place.
So when I read this from the minister's statement, where he says that, Mr. Speaker, the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development program has now entered full implementation. What does that mean? Because you say it hasn't started.
No, Bella,
so I want to understand.
No, we have a whole sector of it. But like I'm saying, the plans that, like the water development program that we said, that was what I was looking at.
Okay.
So basically, it has started. There are some companies, DVLA and others, even the ports are operating.
But not on a large scale. That's what you meant.
Yes, intended. The actual program we want to roll out, which will bring the huge inflows of cash and also investment. That's basically what I'm trying to say, that it's being ensured that it's grounded on a solid legal framework, and that's what we're doing. So that is what I wanted to put across. I hope you've gotten it.
Yes, please carry on.
Good. So basically, Bella, I am happy to report that so far it's been good because, like I said, the indications are there. And job creation is a discussion that, my brother, we should always have. How do we ensure that the growth that we are chopping, as the guys would say, it's reflecting in the pocket? And that is why I've always maintained that value addition to our mineral resources is so crucial. Value addition to our mineral resources. And I mentioned Go Board because I was fascinated when we visited on the success stories. And that is how we should go, Bella. That is the road to go. When we integrate, we ensure that people come in. Feed Ghana program, for example, like I said, will bring huge volumes of job to link up where food is being produced to the table of somebody in Accra. You can be in China, Bella, it takes just a few hours to order something from maybe the north to the south. And if cost of logistics comes down, we'll be doing good. So basically, I think we've done well so far, and I'm so happy. I mean, as I sit here, I'm so happy that everybody is mentioning it. Prof said it, my colleague panelists are all saying it, that so far it's been good. But what we need to do is to ensure that there's prudent measures to ensure that it's sustained. And I can always say that I can always put my head on the chopping board for Ato Forsen. When he says he's going to do it, he delivers. I can do that for the BOG governor. He means business. Things must change. Interest rate is coming down. Credit facilities to our farmers. And investment in agriculture. If there are credit facilities that are available to our farmers, it's a good thing. And when Abuja says that we don't owe any contractors, it is good news, because when contractors are paid, the bank functions and people can have access to credit facility. Okay. So there's good news injections all over from A to Z, and it's across all sectors. Tourism. Now there are forts and castles in this country that are gaining resources and renovations to ensure that the tourism industry also yields to our GDP. Tourism is a huge space. I always say that it is the only way where you can give directly to the poor. And many countries in the Bahamas and other areas are functioning so much with a solid tourism base. And so it's good that the tourism ministry is also working. And Bella, so it's across board. The 24-hour market, I've mentioned it, manufacturing, which with the aid of, and we have plans to have a second GPP2, which is a gas production plant. All right. It is also to ensure that cost of energy comes down. And when there's low cost of energy, everybody thrives. Very quickly, because you brought in, and I'll bring you in shortly, but because you brought in the 24-hour, markets, etc. Now, the minority also raised concerns about how we're not prioritizing, the hospitals, for example, because we're told that some amount of 24 million Ghana cedis will be allocated annually to the markets. And so if that's the case, we have hospitals that have not been completed, yet to be completed, and we seem to be focusing more on markets. For them, that is a problem. How do you respond to that briefly so I can bring in... Well, I dispute it, Honorable. Because the merit of the fact is that injections are being done everywhere. It is unprecedented. The allocation that has been made to the health ministry is unprecedented. It can be times 4 of what they were getting in 2024. This is my second term as an MP. The health allocations that my district is receiving this time around is times 4 of what we were getting in 2024. So injections are being done. But it is, Ghanaians must understand that a government that stayed in power for 8 years couldn't complete some hospitals, and we can't do magic in a space of 1 year, 6 months, fix all the problems. But gradually we are fixing them. Gradually we are bringing life into the health sector, just as the education sector, just as the energy sector, and everywhere. It's happening everywhere. Injections of capital, huge volumes of capital. Honorable Foucault, comment on this. I'm sure you'd want to touch on the 24-hour economy, because again, with what Kojo Pankuma says, which you said you agree to largely, those are not jobs that are reflective of the situation on the ground. Speak to that for me.
Thank you, Bella. I'll come in straight away to the 24-hour economy, but let me just make this comment on the debt to GDP. I want to conclude on that. You see, this 60% and whatever, all this, we touting ourselves that we brought it down and all that. Look, if there was this magic number or this magic percentage, 60, we are below 60. So why are we struggling? Why are we borrowing? Why are we crowding out the private market? If that magic 60% was workable, we shouldn't be borrowing. We shouldn't be going to the T-bills market. We shouldn't be borrowing over 900 million as we came to Parliament a couple of days ago. If there's a conclusive research, show it to me or show it to TV3. They can show it to the world. If there's a particular I know what I'm talking about. The developed countries that we are proud of and we talk about, check their debt to GDPs and look at the theories. It's not as simplistic as that. It's the reality is how much you earn and how much you have to pay out. That is why we need to do debt sustainability analysis. I think we need to put that one to rest. The issue about 24-hour economy, Bella, I'm happy that my colleague here, is today, this morning, confirming that the project hasn't started. The program hasn't started.
Well, he said it started
He did a
in parts, but there's
U-turn.
some
I mean, just he did a
restructuring.
U-turn. Now, initially he said it hadn't started. I mean, because if it has started, then you ask yourself, why are we not feeling it? Why are we not seeing anything? It exists on paper. Aside that, really nothing else. And interestingly, you talked about a 24-hour market.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Bella, would you say that the country called Ghana, our problem is that maybe we sleep too early, so we need to spend the night shopping. So this country sleeps too early. That is our problem as a country. I don't think so. Our problem is not that we sleep too early. Our problem is that of productivity, that we are not producing much, and that is where I started from. That where you are having a monetary policy, do that vis-a-vis with the productive sector to ensure that the productive sector is being carried along. You can achieve the numbers on paper and still the productive sector will suffer. That is why youth employment is that high. Okay, so you ask yourself really, like I said, if we need to stay overnight to develop this country, you ask yourself again, at the moment, is there any law that is stopping, entities, stopping companies from operating at night? There's nothing limiting them. So they could actually go out there and operate at night. Why are they not doing? Because, do they really have the demand to continue producing around the clock? You ask yourself, before this program was, brought up, before it was commissioned or whatever, did we really do some sectorial analysis to really understand the demand issues that really this sector, the demand was really strongly there, so we needed to produce around the clock? Or how did we come about this program? You ask yourself again, as a country, are we saying that per worker, per machine, per capital employed, we have been so efficient with them for the daylight period that now we have to go and continue at night? We have been so efficient per worker, we have been so efficient per machine, we have been so efficient per capital that we put in during the daylight, that now we have to go and continue at night. Your answers are as good as mine.
What are your answers?
The answers are that not really. Because what we are seeing now, the government has come out, have launched the program. Why is it that companies are not jumping into it? If the opportunity was really there, why is it that companies are not jumping into it? Now we are told that, look, some filling stations they have onboarded, and most filling stations, they operate 24 hours anyway. Port services, they operate 24 hours anyway. So what are we talking about? Since we launched this program, can we say that we've had some foreign capital coming to Ghana because of the fact that we launched 24-hour economy? Let's show it, that we've had some foreign capital coming to this country because we launched 24-hour economy. The projects that we talk about, really, maybe we've signed some MOUs, but signing of MOUs, we do it every day. How many of them have really crystallized into real projects? If you sign an MOU that someone says is maybe interested in doing ABC, how many of them have really crystallized? All these projects that we talk about, how many of them have even reached financial close? That they have gone through the months and reached financial close.
But that's what he's saying, that there's a need to restructure the program, which is what they are doing now.
No, Bella, I'm not cutting you. When did we launch this program that now we need to restructure? We just launched a program, now we need to restructure. Is it that we didn't really give it a thought?
Would you rather they rush into it and then get to a point where they realize they should have restructured?
Why was the program launched if really we didn't give it some deep thoughts that this is how it will look like? If you're going to launch such a program, I mean, there are a lot of moderating factors that you need to consider. Okay, the infrastructure work that has to be done. What has been done really to entice, I mean, or to motivate companies to jump on board because you've launched this program? Really, what has been done? You talked about energy. Yes, energy availability somehow, the cost exorbitant. Even within the daylight period, companies struggle to pay off their energy bills. So if you are going to continue producing at night, where the demand is not even there, then your efficiency is going to reduce further. And if your efficiency is going to reduce, your energy costs will be over the rooftop. So did we think about this? Did we think about this at all, or we just launched? So we launch a program, then few months or whatever into it, we say we have to restructure. What are we restructuring? What really did we take into consideration before launching such a program? Now the youth of Ghana, they are crying. Like I said, 34.4% youth unemployment. You promised them that for each job we're going to have 3 shifts. Where is it? It's not happening. So now the focus is going, okay, every district or whatever, I'm going to create 24-hour market. Like I said, is the problem of this country the fact that we sleep so early? No. So if you're going to sell around the clock, what are we producing to sell? We are not supporting the productive sector. If you are not supporting the productive sector, then you are going to import to sell. So you'll be importing all sorts of things to sell around the clock. What are you achieving? That is not how China developed. That is not how South Korea developed. That is not how Vietnam and Co. they developed. No. You need to produce, then you can sell. The demand must also be there. So the program, if you look at it, was not really carefully thought through. If it was, we wouldn't be restructuring or structuring again after just few months of launching. And now, if you look at it, the focus is gradually being shifted from the 24-hour economy as was originally propounded, working around the clock, to now some plus. We're saying accelerated export development, whatever, plus. That is where gradually the shift is going, because they've realized the 24-hour economy as was proposed is not workable. So let's shift into this side. Accelerated export development. Yes. Look, what is different from that compared to the 1D, 1F that Nanado brought? It was about producing, adding value, using some locally, and exporting. Now you collapse that program, and you are now naming it somehow. Once you've grounded some of these companies that were running, now you are rebranding it that is called 24-hour plus. So that is the plus. It's the 1D, 1F. Why did you collapse it and now you are trying to rebrand it in some way? Why do we do that to ourselves as a country? If you're going to develop products or commodities that you believe could be exported to earn income to this country and all that, that program was already there. Okay. We should apologize to Ghanaians why we collapse that program and bring it back. And that is easy because you have already invested in it. If you go into it, you are just going to continue with. And that is good for this country. We shouldn't do a disservice to this country. This program, I think we should be honest with Ghanaians and let Ghanaians know that, yes, we said this, we said that. We've now realized that it's not workable for Ghanaians to understand. The 1D, 1F, we go back to it, whatever we want to call it, fine, we run it. That is the solution to this country, to boost productivity.
Charles McLean is watching, and he wants to know which of these companies have been grounded. You mentioned that some of these companies have been grounded.
Do I need to list companies that have been grounded? I mean, Bella, I'll
Well,
give you that.
he's
Bella,
asking,
Bella,
so that's why
Bella,
I
you know,
just wanted
I'll
to
give
read
you
that.
this work. I mean, you are
Okay.
you are the media person.
No
I'll give you
problem.
this work.
But how many
here,
so far?
I'm coming. So from here, please speak to the NDPC, National Development Planning Commission. They'll give you all the figures. Whoever wants to check, go to their website. You will see the annual progress report for 2024, 2025 has even been launched.
But because you
NDPC.
mentioned it, wouldn't it be right that you also now get into the details of it?
No, I don't want to give figures off head. When if I search for it now, I'll get it. But I don't want to give figures. What I'm saying is go to NDPC website, the annual progress report for 2024, 2025, they are there. Check 2024. You see the businesses that were created under the 1D, 1F. The jobs that it created, they are all there. It's public knowledge.
The
It's
jobs
not-
that were created.
Yes, and the
Okay.
businesses that were running.
So you
and
don't
then
have the
check
figure
now.
as to how many of these are grounded, you are saying, because you cannot.
No, I can't give you the figure. I don't want to say X amount, and then somebody will say, oh, it is X minus what.
Okay.
But it's fact that the government of the day collapsed, and this is not secret. I mean, this has been publicized, that they said they were no more going to run 1D, 1F. Now you realize 24-hour economy is not workable, and you are calling it a plus, 24-hour plus, accelerated export development. It's the same 1D, 1F. Go back to it, support the companies that started to run, and add more. This is good for the country.
Let me bring Nana
We shouldn't
in.
bring politics into this.
Nana, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I want you to touch on the 24-hour economy, because I know that that's also something that you're very keen on. I believe it's one of the things you're also working on at the moment.
Yes, to some extent, yes.
Tell me more about that. I mean, we're hearing from, Honorable, and he indicates that there's the need, or there's been a need for government to restructure and re-strategize when it comes to the 24-hour economy policy. And so even though we have some flagship, implementation here and there, now they need to re-look at how they implement it so that it doesn't become a 24-hour, thing that doesn't last beyond that. Tell me more about the work you are doing with regards to that and what has to be done to make sure that it is implemented the right way.
Okay, so I'll let me just a slight disclaimer that I don't work for government, so
of course
I cannot speak for whether it's been restructured or not restructured. But I think I want to go back before I talk about 24 hours. I want to go back to the point of transformation and jobs. And like everything else, it takes time, it lasts. And I think I just wanted to say that. And I think for me, the base has to be macro stability. That macro stability has to be. You have to have macro stability for a minimum period. It can't be through 4-year cycles or 3-year cycles. It has to be. We have to have continuous macro stability. Without that, there is no basis for job creation. There is no basis for transformation, structural transformation. Now, that's my first point. The second point I want to make before I even get into 24-hour economy is structural transformation. It's not an issue of NDC MPP. I think I need to say this here for and because I'm not in government, or I'm not in politics, I can say this very clearly. And looking at the data, Ghana's structure, the structure of Ghana's economy has not fundamentally changed over the last 60 years. It has not. You've seen some changes here and there, yes, but fundamentally, it hasn't changed. Okay, it is very much on the basis of extractives. It's very much on the basis of you get some growth spurts here and there in terms of some sectors, but fundamentally, it hasn't changed. There are some changes in, say, for example, manufacturing over time. You've seen some changes in certain things certain sectors over time. But fundamentally, if you took the complexity map, which is a way of assessing the complexity of either export or complexity of value addition or productivity measures, those have critically tracked the same. They've come up and down as we've had macro stability burst, but actually, if you compound them over time, they haven't changed significantly. So this is not actually a political issue. I think this is a growth strategy over time. What has a growth strategy been? And I think somebody made a point. To what extent has this growth strategy been maintained? Because if we talk about China, Singapore, these are 10-year experiments. They've done them continuously for 10, 20 years. So the thing about long-run growth, long-run jobs require long-run growth strategies. That's number one. Now, when we come to 24-hour economy in particular, I think it has a number of objectives, and that's my understanding of it. I think there is something around the ambition to work around the clock. But I think it's just one of the ambitions. And I think there's a bit of a comms thing piece there, I think, for the government to sort of think about. So it's not just about that. I think that part of it was also around, they have different pillars. So they have something called the Make 24, which is around specific value chains. So they're looking at textiles and garments, which creates great jobs if you do it very well. They're looking at pharmaceuticals. They're looking at a range of sectors, right? And the second objective there is about bringing in private capital. And so on that point, I think it takes time. So I'll give you an example. So for typically, even for in the UK or say in the US, when you structure a project, right, by the time you do the ESG compliance, the dredging and things like that, it will take you sometimes a minimum of 2 years before you can even bring in 100 million, 200 million. Private capital does not flow in that sort of way. And investment bankers can tell you that. It is not something, unless of course the government has got loads of money and they can put loads of money in, like in the Chinese experiments where you had Guangzhou, where government had loads of money and they put money in building these parks. They had the money. Ghana doesn't have that luxury. So it has to bring in private capital. To structure that private capital to come in, it takes time. You have to have special purpose vehicles. You have to have feasibility studies. Some can take you a year, some can take you in a year and a half. So while I'm not holding brief for the 24 because I don't work for government, I would say to you that these transformation pathways are not 1 year pathways. They're not 2 year pathways. Sometimes they are 2 years. I mean, obviously China is different. They can execute in 18 months, but that's even China, right? So, I mean, I would cut them a little bit of slack on the 24 to say that it does need those feasibilities. It does need those. First, let me give you an example of one of the programs that I really like in 24. For example, they are trying to open up the, I started by saying logistics is a big issue in Ghana. To produce a ton of agriculture products, it's averagely, it takes about $250 per ton compared to Ivory Coast, 150, compared to, I think, Malaysia, $60. Now, obviously, you can see how uncompetitive it is. Again, nothing to do with a particular government. I think, infrastructure has been a challenge over time. Now, to get to open, if you could open the northern corridor into the south and take the load off the roads while you still worry about looking for money to build the roads, if you could take that load off and put them on barges onto that, on floating assets and then link them to rail or some other to the port, that would be a different modal transport that you could create. Now, to do that, that's not a 1 year, 2 year experiment. You've got to look at sort of ESG studies. You've got to look at the water depth. You've got to look at all those things. So those are things my understanding is the 24 hours working on. So I think there is something about talking to Ghanaians around how are jobs created and how long did it take to create those jobs? And again, I'm not a politician, but this is very important because what happens is that we as Ghanaians, and I'm speaking as a public, we incentivize politicians to come up with really, really short measures. So for example, government can come up with things like public works, some really quick way to create the jobs, let's just do something, but those are not sustainable, right? And you can do that within 6 months or a year. But what we want to incentivize governments, irrespective of NDC, MPP, is to look at these long-term structures, right? And then once you do that, where there's obviously people who don't have jobs, how do we support those people that don't have jobs in the short term, maybe through social programs in the short term? But I think that if we want to go the Indian experiment, the Chinese experiment, these are long-term strategies, these are long-term measures. They need to be maintained government to government, and they need to do the right job, feasibility, structuring, bring in private capital. And I want to bring this discussion, and I want to see this in the budget. It's not all about government expenditure. I want to be very clear. I think whenever we talk about Ghana, we talk about government should. This is not just a government problem. This is about bringing in private capital. This is about bringing the foundations of private capital. So for me, I think the 24-hour program is important. I think there are some interesting gems in there. There are some that I don't particularly care for, I think, but there are some really good ones in there. And I think these are long-term strategy that all of us need to support and we need to bring to fruition. So that would be my...
I mean, at the moment, there's still young people who, regardless, want jobs immediately. And so, of course, government needs to explain to the rest of us that the 24-hour economy, like he has said, requires some restructuring. But in the meantime, how do we ensure that we create jobs at the moment for those who are still home, waiting to be employed, waiting to find jobs, while we still restructure the 24 hours?
That's a very, I mean, I would use the word restructure. I think I'll use the word feasibility and looking through how can you, for example, looking at the corridors, what is the right type of private sector you should bring in, what is the kind of right structure with the banking sector, the local bank, the international banking sector, how do you structure those things? So those are really complex and difficult things. I wouldn't say restructuring is about, even if you have a project, you have to work through the feasibility of those projects. It doesn't mean they're not feasible. It just means that you have to put in place, if I bring 100 million, I'm a private sector, I bring 100 million. How do I recover that 100 million? Within 6 years, 10 years, what is the government position in that? So I wouldn't want to use the word restructuring. I think it's just standard for all projects. Short-term jobs. Now, that's a very complex and interesting one because you can do two things as a government, right? You can do two things. You can come up with a massive public works program. So you can do a huge expansionary policy. Unfortunately, Ghana, I don't think Ghana has the space to do that, where it has to use its revenue very carefully, right? It's got, relatively big civil service. So it has to pay salaries. It already has a lot of people on its books. So, but assuming that it went out to the market and borrowed, this is one policy that you could do, but it also could have a negative impact, right? So you could go into the market and borrow loads of money, and you can have huge public works program. By that, you could just sort of create road projects. But remember that those programs will end, and then because they're public works, the government works, and those programs will end, and therefore you would then have an issue where how do you sustain that, and how do you actually pay back the debt on that, particularly if the public works are not projects that can pay for themselves. So that's number one. That's another option the government can take. Now, I'm not government, so they can decide to do that. The second option you can take is making what you have work better. We know that some value chains are not linking up properly. We know there's market gaps, there's market information gaps. So I think that there is something where we can squeeze a little bit of juice out of the existing sectors that we have. We know that some people are looking for suppliers and they can't find the suppliers. So there are interesting programs where government can come up with where it's linking the current existing infrastructural firms together a bit more closer. And the second related to that is working integrated as government. I think, over time, I think one of the things about big governments, generally speaking, relatively compared to its size of economy, is that, and Ghana has had that for over the years. I mean, different governments have pruned down size of government, relatively and all that. But, in terms of, the public sector, we've got really quite a massive public sector, which is interesting because it's good for, public service and things like that. But it also has the negative effect where coordination is an issue. So one of the things I would, if I was government, I would really work on very hard is coordinate, put heads together on the growth strategy. If you look at Rwanda, they've got what they call the Rwanda Development Board, where all the 6 or 7 growth ministries come together. And what that does actually is say there might be some redundancies, or there might be some things you can squeeze out of the private sector. So maybe pharmaceutical sector is looking for cassava, something from some north, but they don't have that information, they don't have that intel. But if you come together, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Trade, a bit more strongly, and again, this is not a criticism of this government, I think it's just a plague that we have generally in terms of coordination, is squeeze a bit of jobs out of the private sector. But I think long term, you have to do the grind around some of the things the 24-hour economy wants to do in terms of opening up productivity corridors, supporting industrial development, and so on and so forth. So it's not an easy answer. It's a very complicated and difficult answer.
I mean, clearly so. But thank you, Dana. Don't go. We'll take a break at this point, and when we come back, we'll go into the various sectors, have Michael and Roland break them down properly for us with regards to what has been said, what's been done so far. And our guests are still here. They'll answer to those concerns as well. This is TV3 Newday, the special media budget review segment on the show. And we're on till the budget is read and even afterwards. And so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
own observations so far been made to us. Here are some.
The budget is very good. Compensate petrol. I better for my mind. Yes, you to my petrol. And I start to do insurance. And also, no boy, it means I can't so say some. Maybe the budget now. Say better from Kakani.
They see any other phone. They be an they say any my idea is to look quiet and then they mean to me talk. Jenny Boyer, the local quiet thing, and toast put the yanka. And to Miss we are for abandoning you will be my alien friends, me, like a cramp. And as I said, I want to run a band there.
The military said the way and your mamma saw economy. The maintenance of the economy, say, be meeting, Negina Acha. Dollar Quasambra, number 10. But if you and so, Embra from my in Germany, family so don't understand from bed 10 to an agree. But still, no message comedy. Me and me, managing power. The Minia can, and you know, and timber from home. Tax for one again, somehow.
Well, Ibrahim Abubakar is our lead correspondent in the Ashanti region as well. And Ibrahim, following these interactions you've had with those residents, it also means there are key areas resident, especially the key vibrant sectors where traders as well as investors are in the Ashanti region would want the finance minister to focus on for the media budget. Which ones would they be?
So, Roland, when you go to the market and transport terminals across Kumasi, one of the key concerns that residents have been talking about has to do with the cost of living and also a fluctuation in fuel prices as well. While government, we do know, has repeatedly highlighted improvement in key economic indicators, and some are saying they are not feeling some significant relief in their daily lives. And for that matter, today, they are just looking at practical intervention that the minister will be talking about to bring down the prices of essential food commodities and also basic necessities for more affordable. Then also looking at ways to ensure that they will ensure greater stability at the pumps and prevent rising fuel costs from putting additional because it's going up. Then we have the whole issue of projects as well. For residents of Kumasi, they are hoping that the government will also talk about release of funds for the completion of some key projects. People are still talking about the completion of the Sewua hospital. We have Buankra. We do know that for Swami Interchange, work is ongoing. But they still want that assurance that in the couple of months or latest by next year, as promised by the government, we will see the light of day or the completion of these projects so that it will also bring that relief to the people of Kumasi. And also one biggest expectation among young people, I'm sure not Kumasi but general, is the creation of sustainable jobs concerns by more people. Looking at how government will bring some interventions or strategies to ensure that the youth will have sustainable jobs going forward. So the discussions are ongoing and people are expecting that at least the finance minister will address some of these concerns because petrol more because anytime we have instability of petrol prices, it means it's affecting everything. So these are the major concerns that residents are looking up to and hoping that the finance minister will talk about it.
Bakar, with the latest from the Ashanti Regional Capital, Kumasi. And Michael, it also means that for those in the downstream petroleum sector, there are key issues that they want to outline, would they?
Exactly, and it's also quite critical because we are picking signals that fuel prices are actually going to go up at some OMCs effective today as we speak, and largely because of the spike in crude oil prices on the international front. As we speak at the moment, the crude oil is trading in excess of $84 per barrel, and there's a lot of concern about this because it affects bread and butter issues here locally directly. And it means that if we're not careful and if it's not managed carefully, cost of transportation is likely to go up and go up soon if nothing critical is done about it. And those are some of the critical things that we are hoping that this media budget will address, because we do know also on the other hand that this translates to some major windfalls in terms of revenue that government is making from the sale of crude. But we have over the phone Duncan Amo, Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, to speak to us about it. Duncan, thank you so much for your time.
Michael, good morning. Thank you for having me.
So we are hearing that fuel prices are going to go up. Some OMCs are increasing their prices, 30 pesos and over. What really is going on?
What I have recorded, or COPEC recorded just a few hours ago, happened to have been about 70 pesos, not 30. Particularly on diesel, price for gas oil has gone up quite tremendously. And I am not surprised that we're going to have to pay for it some way, somewhat directly. We have made several calls on the states to look at ways of mitigating these price fluctuations, because like some of your panelists have indicated, anytime you have a swing in fuel pricing locally, there's a lot of instability in your economy. And I say this on the back of the fact that government will remain the single largest spender in an economy. Don't forget, we don't have government BDC, government OMC. And so whatever the cost of fuel to us, government would equally have to pay for save. And so it does not even bode well for the government's own accounting purposes when fuel prices go up or they fluctuate every now and then, because then you are unable to plan, anything meaningful. I have seen lots of times when government budgets have been, misaligned. And you would find that what was projected to be spent and what was eventually spent, you find quite a lot of sharp contrast in there. I do think that fuel accounting will be one of the major reasons why sometimes our economy will take the sort of battering it does. But something can be done. And I think that I must also be genuine in putting on record that there's been consultations behind the scenes from, very, very high offices as to what exactly needs to be done. Government has in recent times moved to see if it can give or deliver local crude, the crude from Jubilee Fields, as it were, to the local refineries. As I speak with you, we have a meeting with one of the refineries to look at the taking of crude and what exactly the impact could be for the consumer. We'll be asking all the hard questions and then hoping that it doesn't end at just that, not just delivering the crude, but again, government should also be deliberate about the sort of intervention it wants the crude delivery to play on the local market or for the local market. That, again, is an angle that is being pushed forcefully. If you do not have a buffer to fall on, Michael, anything between Iran, the U.S., anytime the bombs, they do fly, just understand that it is going to hit your pocket. And I think that the time has come for us to move away from that practice where anything that happens geopolitically, the Ghanaian taxi driver, the Ghanaian teacher, driver, anybody would have to be saddled with. That discussion would have to be had.
Okay, so we know that Star Oil is going to go up by about 30 pesos to 13.97. Gold and Shell, we understand, are hovering around 14 cedis, 38 pesos. But Duncan, the real question is, in as much as we are pushing this whole local refining, the bottom line is that crude oil prices are still going up. And I doubt that our local refining will exonerate us, will absorb us completely from that shock. Is it time to begin having the real conversation of, say, easing taxes because government is still making more money from the sale of crude at this point to balance it out?
Well, Michael, one of the calls we have made a few days ago for the budget that is about to be reviewed is for the finance minister to consider easing down on some of the levy, particularly the one Ghana, in order that the steep prices that you just mentioned, I think that what you are mentioning now will have to do with petrol. Petrol is also going up by the 30%. But diesel, if you had star figures not long ago, it was about 1627. As we speak, it's about 1695, over 70%, almost. I mean, in there. Petrol is also likely to see an upward adjustment. What that means is that clearly we are being, nothing but price picking. Anytime international markets surge, then we have to pay for that. And so I was happy that the government decided to cut the logistical costs associated with importing finished fuel. Mind you, Michael, the same crude that we produce in the Jubilee enclave, we will send all of that out to Europe for refining, and then we'll go back with cargoes or vessels to go and pick them back. So you almost say certain premiums that you could eliminate. And I think that is the main purpose or reason for which the government thought it wise to now shift crude directly from the Jubilee partners to the local refineries. But then again, Michael, that will not solve the whole price-taking equation. Because if you just deliver the crude at, let's say, economic rates,
all right.
If prices today are around 85, and government is also charging the same 85 for crude,
then it defeated the purpose. But then, Duncan, quickly, we need to go. But then just, can you confirm for us, we understand that diesel will sell likely up to 20 cedis per litre in the next pricing window. Can you confirm that for us quickly?
Michael, the sort of prices you are seeing from August Flood, it could do even a bit more.
Even a bit more.
Could go a bit higher. Because yes, already you've seen about $100 per metric ton jump.
Okay.
It's still not done. It's still going up as we speak. So by the beginning of August, prices could scale up from where we are currently.
Very concerning numbers there. Duncan, thank you so much for your time. That's Duncan Amoah, Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana. They're bringing us up to speed on the issues with the petroleum sector, which we are hoping to get definitive statements from the Minister of Finance at his media budget review presentation. But Bella, you heard it there. Diesel could cross 20 Ghana cedis per litre. We should be worried also about petrol that a lot of us use in our everyday commute. But diesel at 20 cedis, quite concerning for transport operators. I'm sure you agree.
I mean, well, let me leave it for my guests because they're the ones who are here to express their thoughts. But Nelson, I'll start off with you.
Yes, that should be concerning because when you listen to the review done by the governor yesterday, one of the major concerns that actually necessitated the maintenance of the policy rate at 14% has to do with potential inflationary pressures, which was largely attributable to the geopolitical tensions in the Middle East and also the extent to which the cedi has depreciated. And the funny thing is that if you want to check the temperature of an economy, it is always good you go to the pumps. Once the pump prices have shot up, it will directly translate into transportation prices. That will directly translate into, food prices. Currently, food inflation is below 4%. Non-food inflation is also below 5%. So clearly, if prices at the pump will go to 20 Ghana cedis, that is going to be a worrying trend, and that may, to some extent, pose a serious underlying risk to the achievement of the 2026 budget. And so it should be a worry for all of us.
Absolutely. Honorable.
So, Bella, we must also commend the government on the interventions that has been done, and which has brought a lot of reliefs, i.e. the absorption of the 2 Ghana cedis per litre, and also the 0.36 on a litre of petrol. I believe that the speculations must not push us out of the way. We've done that in the past when we're in the storm. There were solutions to it. So I believe that going forward, definitely there's going to be something to be done by the finance minister and the Ministry of Energy to ensure that we are well cushioned. So that's an assurance. So, I mean, let's be a bit objective and optimistic that no matter what it is, this government of the day will be on our side. That is for a fact, because we've indicated and showcased that even when there were issues with the skyrocketing prices of the crude, we still did what we could. You know, the 2 Ghana cedis that we passed, we suspended it, and that is all to the relief of the ordinary Ghanaian on the street. And then also, Bella, I don't know if this is my conclusion remarks.
Yes, these are concluding remarks, yes, unfortunately.
Okay. So, Bella, the indications are good. We've done well so far as an economy, as a country, with all the indications. It's clear. The destination of this country is clear. This government is committed to it. We are committed to accountability, inclusive growth, and sustainable development. Bella, and we've made improvement. A stronger economy, more jobs, rising incomes, and a shared prosperity for every Ghanaian. And I believe that today's media review will be refreshing, because I'm sure Ato Forsen, as always, as he's forcing, will ensure that whatever it brings relief and confidence to the state of affairs.
I see, as he's forcing. Or
Ato is always forcing. I mean, you know it.
Let's see if you say as he's not forcing.
Oh, he has always been forcing.
All right, Honorable, your turn as well.
No, thank you. I mean, you said this is the concluding remarks.
Yes.
So let me thank the viewers, my constituency people. So, I mean, I started by saying, yes, the figures look good on paper, but in reality, is that what Ghanaians are feeling? Coming at what cost? Is it sustainable? And at the same time, is it being felt in the livelihoods of people? The answer is no, because, I mean, the youth will tell you the truth. 24-hour market, really, is it where the priority should be? The Ghanaians will answer. The problem of this country is not that, like I said, we sleep too early. 24-hour economy as a broader policy perspective. My colleague said we haven't started later. He said we have started. If really there are concrete work that have been done, the country, I mean, need to know. And you come all the way financing of the 24-hour economy. We don't know where it's coming from. We were told it's going to be private sector driven. If you look at where banks are putting the private sector monies, agri, fishing, and forestry is below 4%. It's 3.9%. Services is at about 37% or so. So it tells you the private sector that we're saying going to drive 24-hour economy, they are not putting their money in agri, which is at the center of the 24-hour economy. The survey that has been done now, Ashanti region, I listened to it, and then the other panelists that joined, yes, they're talking about reality on the ground, job creation. Like I said, I mean, we are not seeing it happening.
Right.
The prices, if the price of diesel and petrol is going up by the margin that we have had, if it's for real, then you ask yourself, if the economy was doing so well, per the macroeconomic indicators that we have seen, then probably we shouldn't have a problem. But for it to come up means we have problems. And that tells you that the numbers on the papers, there are issues with them. People are not feeling them on the ground. If they were feeling them on the ground, this shouldn't be a problem, or the government should be able to come in to intervene.
Let's
so
see
it's
if
not
government
really
will cushion us
happening on the ground.
At a point. But I want to say thank you to all three of you. And Nelson, I know I didn't tell you these were your concluding remarks. I don't know if you have something finally to say thank you very briefly.
Well,
but you had the chance to say. No, you had the chance. He just responded to the question, and that was it.
That the primary macroeconomic stability we are enjoying now is as a result of coordinated effort between the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana. Right. And we have seen a much more fiscal prudence at the Ministry of Finance. We have also seen a tight monetary stance at the Bank of Ghana. And so we need to give credit to the Finance Minister and the Governor Bank of Ghana for sustaining and maintaining the macroeconomic gains that we have achieved.
Thank you. And yes, the team will take over from 12 noon as we get ready for the Finance Minister to present to us the mid-year budget review. But in the studios, I've been speaking to Honorable Trinebua Koduafuku. He's the MP, Manson Kwanta constituency, also the Deputy Ranking member for Economy Committee in Parliament, and the Vice Chair for the Economy and Development Committee in Parliament, Honorable Kofi Akunokun, is the MP for Evaluate Ajomoro Jura.
Noku.
Hey, Noku.
No problem, that's all.
Pocho you, Marty. But me boni ye Evaluate Ajomoro Jura.
That's right.
Constituency. And also Nelson Kujo Kwagbeji is a finance and tax analyst. Earlier, we had Nana Frimpoma Ahin, a private sector specialist on Zoom, and Dr. Eric Boachi Yadom, also a senior fellow at Africa Policy Lens. But we're wrapping up at this point, and my fellow 24-hour Narians are also on the other side. I'm going to join them at this point so we can end our shift the right way. Gentlemen.
Yeah. And as it is, we've had extensive analysis, of course, led by Bella Mundi, doing the discussions and speaking to the experts and the policymakers as well. But overall, it's the perspective that you hold that's very important. The budget will be read at 2, but from 12 o'clock, we will be with you throughout the period and do the post-analysis right here on TV3 across social media, TV3 Ghana as well. And promises to be quite expectant and exciting.
Exactly, and that's what we're all looking forward to. I hear it's going to be at 2 p.m. So the countdown is on. We're hoping to hear what the finance minister has for us. We do know that there are some uncertainties coming up in the next couple of days, especially what we're hearing with fuel. So how are they planning to cushion us? We want to know, and we are counting down to hear it.
Absolutely. I believe that they've said everything that needs to be said. We'll join you again at 12. Well, not as our shift is done, but of course, TV3 will give you live coverage from Parliament and also with the team here in the studio. And so make sure to tune in. Stay with us. We'll keep you updated. My name is Bella Mundi.
Mine is Roland Walker.
And I am Michael Obodu. Keep watching TV3.
Bye-bye.